Hello and welcome to Baseball Barbacast, the only baseball podcast in the world that knows Oneil Cruz was actually named after Jermaine O'Neal. I'm Jake Mintz. That's Jordan Shusterman. Wasn't Shaq, not Tyler O'Neill, not even Paul O'Neill, who he's actually named after, but Pacers icon, Jermaine O'Neal.
Yeah. That reference hurts a little bit more after the Pacers disaster class in Game 1 against the Celtics, which you definitely did not see, but was extremely tough to watch. But this is a baseball podcast, so we don't have to worry about that. On this episode of Baseball Barbacast, we are going to talk about the Kansas City Royals. We are going to talk about Oneil Cruz because what he did last night was downright preposterous, and I am excited to talk about that. Kyle Tucker is leading the big league in home runs. Shohei Ohtani is leading the big leagues in batting average. What? And maybe we'll squeeze in a few more topics after we talk to our special guest, and that is Jake Eisenberg, one of the broadcasters for the Kansas City Royals, one of our good friends, a fellow March 10th birthday. And we're going to have him Royals explain us because the Kansas City Royals are off to, I believe, what is tied for their best start in franchise history. And even before we bring Jake on, we are going to kind of set up the Royals discussion because what they're doing is significant. And I know the Guardians are in first place, but the Guardians being in first place, that does not shake me when I open the baseball standings. But seeing the Royals record certainly does. And I promise you we'll be having more Guardians coverage later on in this season and maybe even on in this podcast. But Jake, before we get to the Royals of Kansas City, we do have three topics that we want to hit. And let's begin last night in the great city of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, where Oneil Cruz did something. He made Statcast history once again. And, some people were whatever, it's just since 2015. What does Statcast history really mean? Well, I don't even really think you needed to know. Like, if you just showed me these batted balls, I'd be like, this was a special thing that occurred last night. Not only did the Pirates come back and have an outstanding comeback victory in extra innings after coming off this series win over the Cubs, the Buccos are feeling good. But just watching these, particularly that ninth inning one, which I want to talk about specifically, when you watch Oneil Cruz swing the bat, I mean, what are you feeling, man? What are you feeling?
I'm feeling that the term Statcast era doesn't matter with Oneil Cruz because I find it extremely difficult to believe that anybody in 2002 or 1971 or 1938 hit the baseball this freaking hard. If that is the case, well, great. That's fine. I'll be wrong. But when it comes to being like, oh, it's only since 2015, doesn't matter to me. Oneil Cruz and what he is doing is very, very special. Now, is exit velocity, batting average, or OPS, or WAR? No. You can hit the ball really hard and not be that good as a hitter. But I think we have to, as is always the case, multiple things can be true. And what Oneil Cruz did last night by hitting 3 batted balls over 115 and 2 batted balls over 120 deserves to be appreciated.
Yeah. Ninth inning, he comes up. He already has the 120.4 mile an hour single in the first, 116.3 mile an hour double in the third. And he comes up facing Camilo Doval in this huge spot where the Pirates are trying to come back. And I was like, oh my God, like this is perfect. Like if he connects on a Camilo Doval fastball, like we could be seeing something very special and very dangerous for the fielders standing out there. And that is
like
exactly
a hole could open up in the earth, like the scene in Palm Springs, how there's like the hole in the cave.
I don't know
Great
that
movie.
reference.
Great film.
But I was like, there's many of movie where, natural disaster occurs. And this was one where I was like, oh my gosh, this is really could be something else. And he did it. The pitch came in at 100.3 and it went out at 121.5. I think what's important is we've talked about what these numbers mean and why they're important, even if we've only technically had them since 2015. Remember, hard hit is 95. Okay? Like when 95 plus is like, whoa, man, he really got that one. 100 is like, damn, all right, it's a hard hit ball. 110, there's a limited number of guys even in the league that can hit 110 regularly. 120 is 2 people, right? Maybe 3, right? it's Stanton, who we talked about when we talked about the bat speed metrics that Statcast released. Stanton is above, and Oneil Cruz was second. Now, is my other takeaway here is that at some point when Giancarlo Stanton starts to physically decline, which has happened and hasn't happened depending on how you look at it, Oneil will take the crown and have more 120 mile an hour exit velocities than like I this is not something that I would ever think like this 120 for the last 10 years is something we would see once a month, maybe every couple months. And he did it twice in one game.
And I love the narrative of him hitting these balls very hard because in the first inning of this game last night against the Giants, PNC Park, runners on first and third, 2 outs in the first inning, pop up to kind of shallow left field. Cruz ranges out and the ball bonks off his glove for an error that scores 2 runs. And after the game, he gives a quote that said, I was really pissed off when I went to hit. I think that's part of why I hit it so hard. The idea of an angry swing, right? They should just piss Oneil Cruz off every game if he's going to be hitting it. If that's how you get him to hit it 121 miles an hour. With Oneil, he got off to a pretty slow start this year. And I was probably a little bit too doubtful about him. And it's important to remember that he missed all of last season with a leg injury, basically all of last season, and hadn't seen live MLB pitching in a long time. And he has made the adjustment pretty quickly. He's been incredibly hot over the last couple of weeks. And, with the Pirates, he's so important to the future of this franchise, just because he is their best shot at a earth-moving, franchise-altering, dynamic, offensive linchpin, which the Royals have in Bobby Witt, and the Orioles have in Gunnar Henderson, and the Reds have in Elly De La Cruz, right? The Pirates, if it's not Oneil, it's certainly not looking like Henry Davis, and Nick Gonzalez doesn't offer that type of upside, and Termarr Johnson is still in the minor leagues. And so if it's not Oneil, then who is it? And so for him to start to flash and sustain that brilliance again is in some ways similarly uplifting to the Pirates as Paul Skenes' debut.
Yeah, it is more important. And we have obviously a larger sample, but I agree, right? That's just such an important part of a rebuild is finding your pillars, especially in offense, right? Skenes can only do so much. Jared Jones can only do so much. And I think with Cruz too, I think there's also been a bit of trying to understand where does he fit, right? They were trying to lead off and it's like, does this really make sense? Now he's batting more third and fourth, which seems a little bit more fitted because the guy's not going to walk. I mean, maybe at some point he decides, all right, I'm going to start taking some pitches. Doesn't seem like that's really going to be his game. He's still going to strike out a lot, and he's still, and he's not going to take his free passes. Because listen, if I can swing the bat that hard, I'd want to do that too. I would want to be swinging the bat if I could swing the bat like Oneil Cruz. So I understand that. And he's going to be a volatile player, but the flashes like this are a reminder of what's possible. And yeah, man, I mean, it is just, and then last night, win, right? It's one thing. Sometimes he's had these moments earlier in his career and people are like, oh, great, he hit a ball 118. The Pirates are down by 10. Yeah, that's fair. It's a valid response. But it's for this moment to be possible for him to come up against Camilo Doval and feel good about it, right? That's the kind of player that you're looking for. And that was so just, and again, the 120 does look different. I mean, the ball reaches the wall faster than any ball I've ever seen. And which I know for a fact, it is literally reaching the ball faster than any ball I've ever seen.
He hit it too hard because there were runners on first and third with 2 outs. Yeah. They were down by 1. And he hit it so hard, so the runner on third scores to tie the game, but the runner on first doesn't have enough time to score from first to home on a double.
He's a normal guy hitting a double down the line. Yeah, it's. I was like, well, this is the only time when it's like, oh, hey, could you actually only hit that 112? That would be a lot better.
One last thing on this game. David Bednar, who comes in the top of the 10th, doesn't allow a run, and they win in the bottom of the 10th on a Nick Gonzalez walk-off. This is in Alex Stump's article at MLB.com from Bednar. Quote, I think you always have hope. You're always pulling for your guys, obviously. And he's talking about getting loose in that type of situation. I think you always have hope. David Bednar, have you been watching the Pirates? If I had been watching the Pirates for the last 3 or 4 years, particularly the Pirates offense, I would have no hope. And so kudos to David Bednar for his irrational positivity.
Which is, for David Bednar, extends back even farther, right? I mean, this is a guy who is a Yinzer himself and knows the dread of the Pittsburgh Pirates franchise as much as anybody. And yet he was like, yeah, you always have hope. That's a positive guy. David Bednar, he smiles a lot. Like I'm not surprised. His ERA is still over 7, but I like rooting for that guy. And obviously they need to get him right if they are going to have any chance of closing out victorious ball games in the future. So Oneil Cruz, you continue to amaze us. But there is a lot more to be done before Oneil Cruz we can actually declare him a good hitter. A great hitter, I should say. I think he's done enough that I could say this version of Oneil Cruz is a good hitter, is providing enough value. However, to elevate to great hitter, he still has a lot of work to do. However, Kyle Tucker, here's a transition here. Kyle Tucker has been a great hitter. And now he is elevating from great hitter to whatever the next level is. Superstar, best hitter in the league level, one of the best players in baseball. And what Kyle Tucker has done is he is now leading baseball in home runs, two more home runs last night. He's at 17. He's hitting .293. He has more walks than strikeouts. He's got 11 doubles to go with his 17 home runs. OPS well over 1,000, of course. And this is the kind of season that is possible when you have kind of established a baseline of excellence for so long. And then occasionally you'll rattle off like a legit MVP season because that's in there, right? And even last year he finished his 5th in the MVP, but this feels like the season where it's like it all comes together. There's been enough tweaks below where he's walking with it. He's become a little bit more selective and swinging a little bit less than he had. He's always been good about not chasing, but now he is finding the pitches that he can damage. And it's not that he hasn't had power. I mean, he had 30 homers. He basically has exactly 30 home runs three straight years. But now he's heading to 40. And I mean, this is part of what has helped the Astros kind of get back in the mix. And it's not surprising because he's really, really special.
So Corey Seager winning the World Series last year with the Rangers felt like his final act as baseball's best boring player, as baseball's inevitable homering robot, because the torch appears to have been passed to one Mr. Kyle Tucker. And I'm not trying to take anything away from Tucker's game. He's an excellent player. He's a phenomenal hitter. He's legitimately special. He has like the best walk rate in baseball. You said he stopped kind of chasing, and that is very true. He's swinging at way fewer pitches outside the strike zone, and that has helped him kind of find more pitches in the zone that he can do damage on. The lack of obvious outward emotion and zest emanating from Kyle Tucker is special. It is Segerian. Okay. At least like Mike Trout for all of like the discourse about is Mike Trout too boring, right? Mike Trout always looks like he's having a good time. You know what I mean? For Kyle Tucker, this is a business, right? This is a business trip, even home games. I have no issue with that. We can derive our joy as baseball fans from other sources. Like Astros fans should appreciate and love Kyle Tucker. Like ball lovers should tune into Kyle Tucker's at-bats, and his production is awesome. And it's nothing against Kyle Tucker. Maybe he's, got some real personality under the hood. But it makes I guess what I'm trying to say is okay, let me ask this question. Is Kyle Tucker appointment viewing? Like if he's coming up in an inning and you're on MLB TV with the 4-box and the Astros are up 5-1 in the 7th, are you flipping over to watch Kyle Tucker?
He's getting there. I think that is maybe the difference between this season and last season, because he definitely has not been that. Even though he has been an all-star level player for 4 years in a row, I think we're getting to that point because ultimately, no matter what the personality is, no matter what it is aesthetically, you want to watch the best players in baseball.
Yeah.
Kyle Tucker has been that. The other thing that stands out about his statistical profile is we mentioned the home run pace. That's not an accident. His ground ball rate is down 13%. He is elevating and celebrating with regularity in a way that he was already pretty good at lifting the ball, but that is a pretty huge jump. And he's been sensational. And by the way, the last thing I would say about Tucker is, it's interesting you make the Seager comparison because he is a member of the Astros, we've seen him plenty in the postseason. Hasn't really had. I mean, he has 8 postseason home runs because he's played in 62 postseason games before he's like 27 or whatever. But he has a 704 career OPS in the postseason. He was not 237 career average in the postseason. Like we haven't really seen that. We've seen him look really bad in the playoffs at times. Now you play enough in the postseason, you're going to get exposed, and that's what makes the great postseason hitters so special. But that's another thing with Kyle Tucker that I think we haven't really seen him have those moments yet in a very real way. And we'll see if Houston can get their way back into it. Maybe he can do that this year or next year or on his next team. He's got a long career ahead of him, but he definitely deserves the attention because he has absolutely elevated his game this year in a way that I wasn't sure was even possible. Even though I said before, you could not fluke into see, when your baseline is this high, you could have a season like this, but he's changed enough where I think, oh wow, he's actually leveled up. This isn't just like things going his way.
Yeah. He is leading baseball in homers, but he is not leading MLB in average because that title goes to one Mr. Shohei Ohtani. And that is ridiculous because Shohei Ohtani is all these other things. We have never thought of him as a batting average guy. That has never been his thing. Oh, Shohei just gets bat on ball. He's not trying to do too much. He's a knocks collector. He is currently hitting 356. You mentioned to me before the show started that Luis Arraez, who is the most famous singles merchant in the game today, last year he hit 354. Okay, so Shohei Ohtani's batting average right now, through basically 2 months of baseball, is better than where Luis Arraez finished last season. Now, I'll take the under on Ohtani finishing the year at 356. I would take the under on every person hitting 356 in any given season. But this fact of Ohtani leading the league in average made us pull up the MLB batting average leaderboard. Because right now, what an absolute delight. Let me start here. There are 16 players, qualified players, hitting over 300. That is kind of the line that we use as a baseball society to determine
which we should. And we should also say 300 now, whether you care about batting average or not, 300 average now means more than ever because batting average is at an all-time low. And so you can roll your eyes, but like if you're hitting 300 in 2024, I am impressed. I don't care what your BABIP is. Truly, I'm not, this is not, no joke. And you can say, oh my God, that's a terrible take. You're bad at, sabermetrics. I don't care. If you're hitting 300 in 2024, you are doing something right.
Correct. It's hard to be bad and hit 300 unless you're playing in Coors Field. If you're playing in Coors Field every day, I'm going to just hedge on that. Still impressed. Less impressive. Because in the top 16, there are indeed 2 Colorado Rockies. But I'm going to go from the bottom. Okay, I'm going to go from the bottom. I'm going to go from the bottom, and you just kind of stop me. Raise your hand when there's someone you'd like to talk about. Okay. Great. Bobby Witt Jr. is hitting 304. We'll talk about him later. Ryan McMahon is hitting 305. Token Rocky, number 1.
Token Rocky on fire lately, though. So shouts out to Ryan McMahon. Looks great this year. Yeah.
Dodgers catcher Will Smith is hitting 306.
Impressive. He's a catcher. Good for him.
Great. Juan Soto is hitting 309.
That's amazing. That's, again, like Juan Soto, that was the one thing. It's like, oh, well, he'll do literally everything except batting average and then I guess defense. He hit 275 last year, even though people acted like but remember 242 in 2022. So for Juan Soto to hit 316 is not that or whatever. What is he at now? 309. I would say is amazing. I mean, he did it earlier in his career. So yeah, Juan Soto, duh, of course. He's amazing. Best hitter we've ever seen.
At 12, Bryce Terang, Milwaukee Brewers second baseman.
Unreal. Now that's mostly facing right-handed pitching, but still credit to him. That is very impressive.
Elias Diaz, the MVP of the 2023 MLB All-Star Game, our hero, our Rockies legend. He's hitting 312.
I mean, good for him. We talked about how the Rockies catchers have been shockingly good. Maybe they trade him, maybe they don't. They probably don't because they're the Rockies. Who's number 10? At
10, Isaac Paredes, the pole hitting legend. You want to hit a ball the other way? Don't call Isaac. I'll tell you that. He is hitting 314.
He's been. You can keep looking at his Savant. Oh, he doesn't hit the ball that hard. Oh, he's doing it. Like, guess what? All right, sorry, he's a good hitter. I hate to break it to you, Isaac Paredes is a good hitter.
He read Willie Wee Keeler's tip of hit it where they ain't. Luis Ariz is hitting 318. Great. He's got the 9th best batting average.
Disappointing. I am disappointed. Now, again, just on Ariz, last year at this time, Ariz was hitting, I believe, like 383. So he had 400 through April and through the beginning of May. So he wasn't down to 356, but this is when it started to tail off. 318 for Ariz is great, but for him, I'm kind of wanting more. He's the only guy in this list where I'm like, I think you can do better.
Marcell Ozuna is hitting 325. He has the 2nd best OPS in baseball at 1038. Or sorry, 3rd best.
That is ridiculous.
Third best.
Yeah, he has been obviously a huge part of why the Braves have still been very good despite the rest of their all-stars not being as good. And yeah, he's been outstanding.
Jeremy Pena is in 7th. He is hitting 328. This one is ridiculous. Jordan and I have... Jordan, I don't want to give us too much credit. We've been ahead of the curve on every single Jeremy Pena up and down, okay? We were early on him when he was in the minor leagues and kicking ass in the Dominican Winter League, and we were like, this guy is an everyday big leaguer at the least. Then he came up, and he was good. We were right. And then he was insane in that World Series, and we were like, whoa, he is not an all-star. Everybody needs to chill. And then last year, he was pretty mid. And then this past offseason, we were like, you know what? I think people have turned too far on Jeremy Pena. He's totally fine.
And not only did we think, wait a minute, now he's gotten underrated, he also has been making steady improvements. He's cut his strikeout rate by like 5, 6, 7%. Still not walking, but the BABIP gods are smiling down on him so far, and he's having a really nice season.
At 6, Mookie Betts is hitting 330. Great. Next, he's Mookie. Sure.
Yep, of course.
Alec Bohm is hitting 333. Alec Bohm has been a high average hitter his whole career. This year he's adding power to that. He's elevating the baseball more. He's been a way better hitter. He's been the best third baseman in the baseball all season long. This does not shock me. Like, the best version of Alec Bohm hits 333, right?
Exactly.
So
exactly. That's what I was going to say. It's impressive. He's clearly having a career year. He's clearly improved, but not a stunning development. It is a excellent outcome for him, but that's kind of what people were hoping when he was, a top pick.
At number 4 is William Contreras, who's hitting 335. William Contreras deserves his own podcast. He is a fascinating baseball character. And the Brewers, we talk about, like, how do you get a franchise player, right? And the Brewers acquiring and then crafting William Contreras into a better version of himself to find a franchise player is one of the more astounding developments over the last couple of years.
If you want to tell me he's the best catcher in baseball, I'll say I can't tell you wrong. Can't tell you wrong.
At number 3, Jurickson Profar is hitting 339. If I told you this 10 years ago, you'd be like, well, yeah, he's the top prospect in baseball.
If I told you that 5 years ago, you'd be like, that guy stinks. He is not going to be in the league.
If I told you this last year, you'd be like, he's hitting, 229 for the Rockies.
Yeah, I was going to say, right, obviously the Profar trajectory has kind of been a bit wild, but I don't know, man. Happy for him. That's awesome and a huge part of the Padres' success this season.
At number 2 is Salvador Perez, who's hitting 343, which is so goofy and so great. Salvi is a joy. He has been a huge part of the Royals' emergence this season. He has been unconscious at the plate. He will not hit 343 all season. He is not a high average guy. What is the highest average he's had in a season, Jordan? To finish,
flush 2020, 301 as a rookie in 2012. I mean, he, from 2013 to 2023, he had a 263 batting average. So, it's not like he's, someone at the very bottom, but for the amount that he swings, it is just improbable that he has been able to be this productive from a pure hits perspective. And the 378 BABIP surely helps that, as does the 397 BABIP for Shohei Ohtani, or that number actually might be higher after last night. But Shohei Ohtani is at the top of this leaderboard, batting 356. And that it's like, okay, well, he wouldn't have to focus on pitching. He can actually become a better hitter. Like, we would say that, but like, did we really think that he was going to become that much better of a hitter? Maybe. And yeah, he's so unbelievable. And
I'll tell you this, Jordan.
Just so funny. Yeah, go ahead.
I don't know how I would get him out.
Well, here's the thing about Ohtani is, like, we were like, oh, well, I guess he can't win MVP this year because he's not pitching. He's like, oh, really? You sure about that?
Watch this.
and he's on the Dodgers. Oh, he has too many good players. He's unbelievable. He is unbelievable. And he's 13 for 13 stolen bases because, of course, he is. Doesn't play defense, though. What a scrub.
You know who loved batting average? You know who loved batting average? The 2015 Kansas City Royals. And that is where we will begin our next topic. We are going to have Jake Eisenberg, one of the Royals broadcasters, on in a couple minutes. But before we have him on, we wanted to zoom out and give a little bit of context for where the Royals were and where they are now, and kind of try and understand why their 30-19 record, I believe, is so improbable considering the recent history with the Kansas City Royals. So let's turn the clock back to 2015. 2015, the Kansas City Royals win the World Series. They beat the Mets in 5 games.
Like the best thing you can do, right? Is win it all.
That is it. Yeah, there's no Club World Cup, right? Like you don't play the Hiroshima Carp, in the KT Wiz and Lise. Like that
you should.
We don't have that.
Yeah.
The World Series is America and Toronto. Anyway, they win the 2015 World Series with a whole lot of contact, a whole lot of spunk, and a very good bullpen. Okay. And that's great. Yay, parade, banners, and flags. Boy, oh boy, do they fly forever. But the core gets bad pretty quickly, especially on the offensive side. Hosmer, Moustakas, Salvi takes a bit of a step back the next couple years. Jordan, I bring this up because you know what the highest OPS plus on the defending champion 2016 Royals?
I know it wasn't Hosmer. It could have been.
It was Drew Butera. Drew Butera, their backup catcher.
Kendrys Morales? I mean, I can't remember. Was he on? I always mix up when Morales was on the Royals. I think he was on that team.
Don't hurt your head. It was Drew Butera. Okay. He had a 113 OPS plus. So, like, as the defending champions, high expectations, and they just went 500. They go a game under 500 in 2017, and then the bottom completely falls out in 2018 with a 104 loss season because the farm system was never really replenished as the Royals were winning. And that leads to bad seasons in 18 and 19 and 20 and 21 even. 21, there's a little bit of optimism. They win 74 games. 22 and 23, things get even worse. And so heading into this year, it's like, oh, well, yeah, there's some promising things, but they have been bad. They've gotten progressively worse each of the last 3 seasons. 2 other important things I want to kind of highlight here. One is the 2018 draft. Okay. In the 2018 draft, the Royals take 4 college pitchers in the first round. All right. Very rare, very unprecedented. That is Brady Singer, Jackson Kowar, Chris Bubich, and Daniel Lynch. And that quartet is at a very interesting trajectory. And I would say that their lack of sustained success so far feels like less of a scouting problem and more of a player development problem, right? That the Royals were getting talented players, pitchers specifically, into their system and not getting the most out of them. That is something that has definitively changed, at least at the big league level, and has allowed their success this season. And the other big development, right, is they get Bobby Witt Jr. in 2019. And in 2019, he is drafted 2nd overall. John Sherman buys the team. And then I guess the other big data point is September 22, Dayton Moore, their general manager, gets fired and replaced with JJ Piccolo, who had been under Dayton Moore for quite some time. But heading into this season, there was optimism, there was hope, but I don't think we shared it to the same extent. We had doubts about the bottom of the order. We didn't think the pitching was going to take such a big step forward. We liked Bobby Witt. We liked Cole Reagans, but we really didn't believe that the Kansas City Royals would be this definitively better this quickly.
Yeah. And I think that what has happened is as we started to add, they started to add before we thought they were even ready to, right? When you bring in guys like Seth Lugo and Michael Wacha, it's like, okay, good. We're always going to commend teams for trying, but it was like, okay, but how ready are we actually to win? And it seems that there were enough steps forward being taken kind of behind the scenes, not to mention what has happened with Bobby Witt Jr., which, we just talked about Kyle Tucker going from great to one of the best players in baseball. I mean, that's Bobby Witt Jr. to a T over the last 2 years, right? And that is a huge deal. And when you have one of those players, a lot opens up, especially when he's your shortstop, a lot of possibilities open up to you. But really the turnaround on the mound is I think the biggest thing, and I'm excited to talk to Jake Eisenberg about that. But yeah, I think it is really interesting to kind of reflect how they got here, see what their missteps were, see what they did get right enough to end up in a situation where they still have enough talent here. Because we talk, oh well, the Orioles, you lose enough of course you're going to end up with this many good players. It's never that simple. Even the teams that super tank on purpose or not on purpose are going to have some good picks and are going to have some bad picks. All of it takes some amount of luck and some amount of skill. And now we've arrived at a very, very interesting place where the Royals are off to their best start I think tied for their best start in franchise history, and sets up a very, very compelling second half of the season for them because, man, this is really something for Kansas City. Any other prelude we feel like we need to address before we get to Jake?
Well, Jake Eisenberg, our guest, I believe this is his second year being around the Royals every day. He was the broadcaster for the AAA Omaha Storm Chasers, the Royals affiliate in AAA. So he spent a lot of time around these players. And so I just think that context is important because Jake is not going to come on and be like, I remember back in 2017 when blah, like he's been around only a handful of years, but he is seeing this team every day on a regular basis. And so we want him to come on and Royals explain us. So let's take a quick break. And when we get back, Jake will be here with Jake.
And welcome back to Baseball Barbacast. I am very excited to welcome our special guest. It is another Jake, which is about to be confusing, but not for me. It's Jake Eisenberg, the Royals broadcaster and fellow March 10th birthday haver. Welcome back to Baseball Barbacast. It is great to see you, my dear friend.
Yeah, great to see you too. And happy belated birthday. It's only 2 months late.
Oh, sorry, man. Well, it's okay. We always got each other covered on March 10th. Jake, you are on here to talk about the team that you watch and say words during their games. That's what the broadcasting is, right? You watch them and say words during the games, and people listen?
Sometimes it's unidentified noises, but it's mostly words.
Okay. So, Jake, why don't you, before we ask you some questions about this team, how long have you been saying words about the Royals and Royals adjacent teams, we should say?
Well, I mean, Royals adjacent teams since 2021. That's when I was the broadcaster for the Omaha Storm Chasers, the AAA affiliate. But this is year 2 full-time with the Royals, saying lots of words, almost all of them about the Major League Royals. And so year 2, a little bit different than year 1 so far, I would say.
And I think that's a good place to set up.
They've almost caught up the win total from last year.
Well, that's one obvious place to start. But it's funny you say, oh, now I say all these words about the Major League Royals because the Major League Royals are good for the first time in a while. And, so often with teams that are rebuilding, you're looking down on the farm and you're saying, please, is there help on the way? What is coming? What is going to save this franchise? And now as we watch the 2024 Royals off to this incredible start, it has been a combination of homegrown players that have come up and become good Major League players and outside reinforcements. So let's start with a very simple question, Jake Eisenberg, who says words about the Kansas City Royals. Why are they good?
Where do you want to start? I could start with a name, Salvador Perez. I could start with another name, Seth Lugo. I could start with a statistic that the Royals have one of the best rotation ERAs in baseball. Or I could tell you that they have one of the best defenses in baseball. Or I could tell you that their offense is the best with runners in scoring position in baseball. So really, it's pick your poison. So often we hear that good starting pitching, timely hitting, and an excellent defense are the 3 pillars of a really good baseball team. And the Royals have all 3 of those pillars right now, and all 3 of them are not just good, they are above average, and they are excellent across the game.
So what has surprised you the most? Because heading into every team's spring training, there is a sense of optimism. And you talk to any team's broadcaster or reporters about a team in spring training, and almost always they will come out and say, oh yeah, like this team's going to be better than people think, right? If you add the projected win totals for like every broadcaster, it would be way over like 162 or whatever that number would be, right? The optimism is unfettered. So, but like what has been different about this team than you expected in camp?
Yeah, surprising and different. And this is a very subtle difference, but to say something is surprising is sometimes, I don't know, you don't want to be accidentally disrespectful to somebody who's performing at a level that they think they should be performing at. So I'll go with different than maybe what we expected. I mean, Salvador Perez's walk rate is certainly a lot higher than anybody expected. So that's certainly, you know what, that checks the box of surprising. Salvador Perez's walk rate is absolutely surprising, but like his level of production, I wouldn't say is surprising, because if you've been around Salvi long enough, you know that he's prone to doing superhuman things. And so seeing him do superhuman things this year is not exactly a surprise. I think something that has come to fruition that we hoped would be the case is that this starting rotation has had the depth and consistency that I think everybody hoped it would have, with the additions of Seth Lugo and Michael Wacha, and a bounce-back season from Brady Singer, and the continuation of the emergence from Cole Reagans and Alec Marsh, who's been fantastic. I mean, this is a rotation that's put together 48 starts. These 5 pitchers have started 48 of the Royals' 50 games. The Royals rotation overall, you throw in Jonathan Bolin and Daniel Lynch, who each made a spot start. This rotation has 25 quality starts in 50 games. So half of the team's games, you're getting a quality start. And 6 innings, 3 runs, whether or not that is true quality, yeah, we can debate that, but they're giving their team a chance to win every single night. And when you have an offense that tends to pounce on pitchers and really, like sharks in the water, when they get a runner on base, it becomes one of the best offenses in baseball. That's a pretty good recipe for success. I'll say one other thing that's maybe different is that this Royals bullpen, for the most part, has performed pretty well. They don't strike a ton of guys out. They probably walk a few more batters than they would like, but they strand runners at an incredible rate, and they just seem to get outs when they need to get outs for the most part. James McArthur has been excellent. John Schreiber has been low-key one of the best off-season trades in baseball, maybe. And Angel Serpa has really started to turn it on. I'd encourage you to go look at Angel Serpa's numbers, because he's quietly becoming a pretty dominant force at the back end of the bullpen.
Okay, so from 2018 to 2023, the Royals had the second worst starting rotation ERA in baseball. Okay, the only team worse than them was the Rockies, who play on the moon, right? So you could basically say that during that span, the Royals had maybe the worst starting pitching in the league, right? That is different this season. It is different. How much of that credit goes to Brian Sweeney, the Major League pitching coach, who has gotten a lot of love for turning some of these guys around? And how much, what is that guy actually doing, right? I know that's kind of a vague question, but it feels like he has been the hero that a lot of Royals fans have clung on to, but how much love does he deserve versus the players themselves, and what is his role?
I mean, I think he deserves a ton of credit as somebody who leads the pitching coaching staff. It's not just him. It's also Zach Bove, the assistant pitching coach, Mitch Stetter, the bullpen coach. I think they do a really good job integrating the research and development team that the Royals have built over the last couple of years. And I think you also have to include the front office as part of this pitching turnaround, because it's JJ Piccolo's front office that went out and signed Aroldis Chapman, and then the pitching development team that turned him back into Aroldis Chapman, and then the front office who went out and traded Aroldis Chapman and got back a guy in Cole Reagans. Then the pitching development team adds a slider to Cole Reagans, and he becomes the best pitcher in the American League in the second half of 2023. It's also the front office that went out and traded for James McArthur, and then the pitching development staff that helped turn James McArthur into what we're seeing now. It's the front office that went out and got John Schreiber in this past offseason. It's the front office that went out and signed Seth Lugo and Michael Wacha, and that's all, with the pitching coaching staff and looking at the things that they want to look at and saying, okay, Seth Lugo, that's a guy that we think can take a pretty big step forward after what he did in 2023. So I think Brian Sweeney deserves a ton of credit, no question, but I think it's a lot more holistic than meets the eye. I also think, and it's hard for me to speak to anything that happened before 2023, but I think one of the biggest differences this year versus last year, just on the face, is health. I mean, the Royals lost 3/5 of their starting rotation before the end of May to the injured list last season, and that doesn't include Brady Singer, who finished the season on the injured list. So the Royals really had trouble having some consistency in the rotation, employed an opener a ton, which was good at times and necessary at times, but also not necessarily the ideal for what you wanted at certain times last year. So the fact that they've had, 7 different starting pitchers through the first 50 games this year is a stark contrast to last year. I mean, this is not quite like the 2003 Mariners or anything, but the fact that you've had your opening day starting rotation, those 5 guys start 48 of your 50 games, I think that's a pretty big difference from from last year. And the fact that they're performing, obviously, is also a big difference. So yeah, Brian Sweeney deserves a ton of credit for being able to blend what the research and development team is giving him and what the front office is saying and suggesting and trading for and signing, and then working with these guys in the bullpen and day-to-day and helping them improve, add a pitch here, maybe drop a pitch there. I mean, yes, Reagans has added a slider. Michael Wacha's also added a slider this year. Brady Singer added the four-seam fastball. He continues to work on that split change. So all of these repertoires continue to evolve. That's a huge credit to Brian Sweeney, Zach Bove, and Mitch Stetter. But yeah, the pitching is the backbone of this team, no question. And that is certainly a departure from what the Royals have experienced, like you said, over the last 6 years.
And the pitching is what has kind of sold me on the Royals as a good baseball team. Now, as you mentioned, health has been a big part of that, and you hope that they can sustain that even to a certain degree. I mean, if you're not going to get 156 starts out of 5 guys, that's just not how baseball works in 2024, unfortunately. But what I want to do here, before we get you out of here, is 2 things. I want to go down here and get a little bit concerned, and then we're going to finish with Bobby Witt Jr. Okay, that seems like a fair thing. I want to finish on a good note here.
Thank you for preparing me.
Okay, yeah, I just want to make sure we're on the same page about the expectations for everyone involved. I don't want to just finish and be like, but they're about to lose 20 of their next 30, right? Like, and then say goodbye. That seems lame. But
I'm just trying to turn Jake into a believer. I know, Jordan. I know you're already on board.
I want to be very clear, and this is a good transition. I'm not a disbeliever. Okay, I'm not a hater. I'm just like neutral on the Royals. I'm not buying. I'm not selling. I'm not touching it. Like, I'm just waiting. Okay, I'm not.
You're seeing the thing work, and you're like, if I touch it, it might break. I don't want to touch it.
I'm doing the opposite.
My fat ass is going to make this bandwagon fall apart if I hop on it. Okay, is how I feel.
No, there's room. There's room. Please come join.
Okay. So here are my areas of concern. Okay. 1, you mentioned 2 things: strand rate and
runners in scoring position.
And runners in scoring position. And if I am looking for a trap door, those 2 stats feel pretty good in terms of unsustainability. Okay. And I'll throw Salvador Perez's batting average in there with those 2 things for unsustainability. Okay.
And maybe walk rate.
That's one bucket. Okay. Those things. Okay. My second concern is a lack of depth on the farm, because the Royals have a well below average farm system. And if there are injuries that come up in the rotation or in the lineup, they are going to be less capable of backfilling those than, say, Cleveland, who has a pretty decent amount of depth in the upper minors. Maybe less on the pitching side with Cleveland just because they've had so many injuries, but you get my point. And then the last thing is the bullpen, right? This bullpen has overperformed, but is it legitimately good enough to be a playoff quality bullpen? Oh, sorry, one more concern. The bottom of the lineup. The bottom of the lineup is just not that good. It's not that good. It has not been that good. They have won all these games without it being that good. And I have doubts about whether it will turn around. So with all of that gray rain cloud that I have just thrown upon your head, Mr. Eisenberg.
Yeah, geez, where's my umbrella?
So again, not hating.
Can I rebut these? One by one.
Yes. But remember, we're going to come out of this feeling good. Don't worry.
We'll come out of this feeling good.
You go ahead. Please rebut first. I want to hear.
I would say I'll start with the bullpen and the way that they performed and Saran rate. Yeah, that's one that probably at the level that they are currently stranding runners isn't super sustainable. The fact that they don't get a ton of swing and miss is something that is definitely a concern. There's not a lot of juice in the bullpen right now. There's not, a guy like Mason Miller throwing 103. I mean, how many of those guys are really out there? But the Royals had that a little bit last year in Chapman before they traded him. I would also say that's one of the easiest things to fix and upgrade over the course of the season. So that's not a super big point of concern, I would say, for me. There also are some guys that are in the minors or currently rehabbing right now, like Carlos Hernandez is almost done with his rehab assignment. He can bring some juice. Will Klein pitched pretty well in his major league debut. It was only 1 inning, but he was throwing in the upper 90s. James McArthur does have, 95 plus in the tank. And, who knows? There are some other guys that might emerge out of the blue somewhere. We saw John McMillan kind of come out of the blue last year. And McMillan hasn't exactly had the best start of the season, especially in terms of strikeouts and walks, but there could be a John McMillan type that emerges out of the blue somewhere on the bullpen side of things. Runners in scoring position, as unsustainable as you might think that is, that was a huge emphasis for the Royals this past offseason, was better situational hitting, specifically productive outs, and they have changed their approach in that situation in order to be extremely effective. I think the key is, how do you take the approach that you have when there are runners on base and runners in scoring position when the Royals are hitting over 300 as a team? And how do you apply that to when the bases are empty, when the Royals are hitting like 212 or something? Once those things kind of start to come together, you're going to see a much more well-rounded offense. I would say, as it relates to Salvador Perez and his batting average and his walk rate, I put it to you, Jake Mintz, doubt Salvador Perez at your own peril.
That's my
so
take.
many people have time and
I'm
time
not
again
doubting.
and time again. You sound like you're doubting a little bit. You sound like you're doubting a little bit. So
I'm
I would
not
say
doubting.
doubt El Capitan at your own peril.
Yeah. Amen.
Until he proves otherwise.
Let me be
he
very
is
clear.
One of the best players on the face of the earth.
That's my
Okay, here's
So-
all I'm saying. Okay, my guy has been a 171 OPS plus guy so far this year. He's hitting 341. He has not hit that well over a full season batting average wise in his whole career, but he has not been over 300. We mentioned this earlier on the show, since 2012 when he was 22. I'm just betting that he will fall back to earth a little bit, okay, and be an all-star level producer. But he is, which is great. Which is great.
A little bit. Sure, that's just natural, regression to the mean or whatever. But I think you're going to look up when the season ends, and if the Royals are playing like the Royals are playing now, like that dude's going to be top 5 in MVP if people are paying close enough attention, which they should be. And Bobby Witt Jr. should be probably top 5 in MVP if people are paying close enough attention, and they should be.
Oh, no. No, you don't get to transition to that just yet, because we have to talk about the bottom of the lineup.
Okay, fine. How many contending teams right now have a lineup that goes 1 through 9?
Yeah, it's a short list. I mean, the Dodgers bottom lineup is just as bad.
Okay, but the Dodgers are ridiculous. Okay, when you
No,
have
that was
Ohtani Freeman.
I was being serious. That was a real thing. The bottom of the lineup stinks. Like, I'm agreeing with you. Like, to me, what's frustrating about the Royals one is that, like, some of those guys were the additions that we thought were going to help and that haven't necessarily done that. MJ Melendez, who started hot, like, I know he's really been struggling in May. I still think that there's something there. I think this is where this is what spooks me too, is the bottom. But it might not matter, because what I've said about this division is that the offensive bar is very low. And if you have enough, like Bobby Witt Jr., but I will say, of the guys who are struggling right now, who are you most like? I think they're going to be all right.
First, I'll tell you something that confuses me about this team right now, and this is related to the bottom of the lineup. I'll say first, Kyle Isbell has been pretty solid in the number 9 spot, and he's playing Gold Glove caliber defense in center and doing offensively pretty much all that you were asking of him. And that he's been the number 9 hitter all season long. Not really worried about Kyle Isbell at all. The thing that perplexes me is that Maikel Garcia has like the most RBIs among leadoff hitters that aren't Mookie Betts and Gunnar Henderson, and that's hitting behind this bottom of the lineup that hasn't really been producing. So how does Maikel Garcia have all of these RBIs and yet the bottom of the lineup isn't producing? I don't have the answer. That's a genuine question. I can't figure out how this is happening, because there are concerns about MJ Melendez's consistency, and he's shown in the past his ability to be an impact bat. Hunter Renfroe has the track record. He was signed as someone who had a track record and kind of had an offensive floor that you could count on. He hit another home run last night. Hopefully you're seeing signs of it turning around. He's traditionally been a slow starter, so I'm going to go on the side of optimism there with Hunter Renfroe, because he's been there and done that. I think you could say the same thing about Adam Frazier. Has either of those guys performed to the level to this point that you would expect from them offensively? No, but it's also the end of May, and because the other bats in the lineup have done as well as they have, it hasn't been as glaring because it hasn't been the thing that's been holding this team back. It's been something that's when you've gotten contributions from them, it's helped propel them forward. And so, yes, the bottom of the lineup, yeah, it's a concern. At the same time, again, how many contending teams have a 1 through 9? I think the Royals right now are pretty solid 1 through 5, and then 6 and down, you kind of take what you get for right now. But again, somehow Maikel Garcia has 32 RBIs or something. So what do I know?
Okay, so let's meet just quickly, and then Bobby Witt. You're right that specifically in the division that they play in, no one has a 1 through 9, and that is why I feel optimistic about them. However, I would say the Yankees and the Orioles and definitely have them, and the Braves and even the Dodgers and probably the Phillies. So like the best teams do indeed have.
Yeah, but let's just take a step back and realize that you're talking about the Royals in the same breath as the best teams in baseball, and that is something that needs to be acknowledged.
Bingo. And that is exactly why altogether we wanted to have you on, and we wanted to talk about the Royals and the good vibes that are around this team because they are in the conversation. We are talking about them in this way and not in the, man, that's bad. So let's finish with the thing that is going better than anything else.
It's way more fun to have this conversation.
Let's talk about Robert Witt Jr. So I'm going to ask a very simple question and just let you go. What makes Bobby Witt Jr. special?
Everything is the simplest answer. He can hit for power. He can hit for average. He can run like pretty much nobody else in baseball other than maybe like Elly De La Cruz. His defense at shortstop is the best in baseball. What category am I missing right now? Because I'm missing something. But I mean, he does everything.
He's also really cool.
He does, yeah. He's also really cool. I mean, he's become a leader in the clubhouse in the way I think everybody hoped that he would. I think having the contract extension definitely helps, but I also think just year 3, like full on year 3 in the big leagues, absolutely helps. I mean, lest we forget, we're still 3 weeks shy of Bobby Witt Jr.'s 24th birthday, and there is a literal captain in the clubhouse in Salvador Perez. And so as much as it is Salvy's clubhouse, and it is also in a way Bobby Witt Jr.'s clubhouse, and he's really matured and learned how to be a leader both vocally and by example. I think he learned a lot from his experience at the World Baseball Classic last season, spending time around those guys and seeing how they go about their business and how they impact the people around them. But you ask what makes Bobby Witt Jr. special, I think it's all of the things that have made him special since the Royals drafted him 2nd overall in 2019. I mean, hitting coach Alex Zumwalt, who was the director of hitting performance and the minor league hitting coordinator for a while when Witt was coming up, he said to me once that he watches Bobby Witt Jr. play, and he wants his kids to play like Bobby Witt Jr. plays because he has a smile on his face all the time, and he's just having fun playing the game. And I don't think there's any higher praise that you can get from a hitting coach or any person than I want my kids to be like you, or I want my kids to play like you. And then you throw that in with like the ability that he has to occasionally be a goofball every now and again and keep it light. I mean, I'm sure you guys have seen. I mean, if you haven't already noticed, that the boys are playing some ball, and the boys are playing some ball because Bobby Witt Jr. is helping them play some ball. And so what makes him special? He plays some ball, Jake. Bobby Witt Jr. plays some ball.
And I'll just say, listen, we could do, again, whole pot on Bobby Witt, but he's like the most obvious thing about the Royals that people understand, but I appreciate that insight. I'll just say that the home run he hit last night, 468 feet, that is not a home run. I believe it was top 10 farthest home run in Statcast era in Kansas City. And if you go watch the handful of other home runs that were hit to that part of the park, it's Miguel Sano, it's Jorge Soler, it's Chris Davis with a K. It's guys who are not the fastest player and also an amazing shortstop.
Yeah, and here's the thing.
I think the best way to put it.
So he hits that home run. It lands upper tank to the left of straightaway center, which is just absurd. But what doesn't show up, or maybe it does show up on Statcast metrics nowadays, I don't know. There was a pretty heavy crosswind last night going from left to right. And if you've ever been to Kauffman Stadium, you know that when the wind picks up here, the wind picks up here, and it is a factor, as Denny Matthews loves to say. And it was a factor last night, and somehow Bobby hits this ball 468 feet, dunking it into the upper tank on a Casey Mize splitter. I mean, my jaw dropped. I've never seen a ball land there, even in batting practice. I know others in Kansas City have seen balls land there before, but that was the first time I'd ever seen it happen, and that was absurd.
And the cool thing is, it won't be the last time for Bobby Witt Jr. Jake Eisenberg, thank you so much for joining us and giving us and Royals-splaining us and getting the other Jake on board for this Royals bandwagon. We appreciate the insight and enjoy the rest of the season, my friend.
Yeah, Jake, welcome to the bandwagon. We're happy to have you.
All right, welcome back to Baseball Barbacast. Enough of the Royals. They're a small market, so we don't have to talk about them too much. For all you Guardians fans out there, we will talk about you. Jordan Shusterman will be around your ball club quite a bit later on this summer. There is absolutely no need to worry. We do know that Jose Ramirez is crazy hot right now. We know that David Fry is just what?
I am, so again, context, I'm moving to Northeast Ohio literally next week, so you'll get a lot more Guardians content soon. But just like understanding David Fry is one of my big goals for the second half of the season. So look forward to that. But yeah, Ramirez has been unbelievable. But like I said, like the Guardians having an awesome bullpen and winning close games, and Stephen Vogt's a good manager. Like these are very good things that are not shocking. They're not taking me by surprise.
Yeah.
And so consider that a credit to the team that you are actually a fan of. If you are a Gardos fan listening to this, being like, no more Royals talk.
If you're a Guardians fan and like you look at like the Royals Baseball Reference and you go, Seth Lugo's gonna win the Cy Young. That's what we just tried to answer, right? Like that's surprise, that feeling that you have in your chest. Okay, couple things. Number one, Mariners are up 3 games in the division. They beat the Yankees twice in Yankee Stadium. I went and saw them yesterday. The vibes are pretty good. Let's wait until Friday because the opportunity is alive.
That's true. The opportunity is alive. So we can wait until Friday to kind of talk about what the series means. However, I will say is the first 3-game division lead after May 1st for the Mariners in over 20 years. Okay, so that doesn't mean this is going to sustain. They're definitely going to win the division, but that's important. Okay, this is a thing that they have not felt very often, even as they've had a lot of success in recent years. But anyway,
similarly, the Phillies currently have a 6-game lead over the Atlanta Braves in the National League East. That 6-game lead, that is their largest lead atop the division since the final day of the 2011 MLB season.
Okay, there you go. Not as long as 20 years, but that is, considering these two teams' success in recent years, that is definitely an interesting note there as they continue to play poopy teams. The Rangers might be one of them. More on that later this week. And then the last thing I wanted to mention is just, Mason Miller. Basically, I just want people to know, every time Mason Miller pitches, I put his name on our podcast prep doc to be like, just make sure we just say his name.
Because he pitched.
Because he pitched. So I'm doing that here. This is me acknowledging I saw Mason Miller pitch. It was amazing. Even against the Rockies, he's doing it against everybody.
Jake and Jordan also are very aware that James Wood, the top prospect of the Washington Nationals, has been electrifying AAA last couple of weeks. There have been many a call to call him up. I that's a good thing. Call him up. Great. Just want to say, remember, we did this with Jackson Holiday. Okay, everybody, like sometimes guys like need more time, even if they're crushing AAA. That being said, James Wood will be up soon, and we will talk about him a little bit more on Friday because I am going to see James Wood in person tomorrow. I'm going to catch Rochester on the road out in Lehigh Valley, and so I will give an eyewitness report of Mr. James Wood on the Friday episode. Our last nugget before we say goodbye is that I'm playing baseball today.
Oh, Jake's playing baseball today. What does that mean?
It is the first ever alumni game, high school alumni game for my high school that will pit the current team against a ragtag group of alumni. Now, I don't want to gas myself up too much, Jordan, but I would say I'm probably like an inner circle, all-time, Jewish day school baseball career.
Absolutely.
100%. And so the game is being played in honor of a friend of mine his dad passed away. And so the game is in his honor. So I'm making the drive down to DC to play. So I felt like I really needed to make sure I showed up. I have not played a baseball game in a year. I'm very excited. I don't know if I'm going to pitch or catch or not play.
All I know is that you're getting injured. I don't know if it's going to be on the bases. I don't know if it's going to be like, it might not, even if you don't pitch, like it might be you in the outfield just like crow hopping and just ripping one, and your UCL's like, no.
So what I'm most interested in is the new dynamic, because I have played many, men's league games as a adult person. However, I have usually been the youngest or one of the younger players in that environment. And that will certainly not be the case today. I will probably be one of the old heads rolling about. And so that shift is going to be very damaging to my own ego. And so I need to come prepared. I've already started stretching. I can't find a baseball belt, and I don't have a bat, and I can't wait. I went back and found my high school stats the other day.
Yes.
I think I sent you the doc. Did you open it?
I remember. See, it's funny. You sent it to me, and I was like, oh, yeah, I remember looking at this doc like 10 years ago.
It ages so
Google
well.
sheet.
It's an unbelievable Google sheet. I believe I struck out 75 guys in 40 innings and also hit 12. I was just plunking the farm and striking out I can't wait to be back on that diamond.
To DZ private schools. Here's the last thing I'll say before we end this podcast, Jake, is will your appearance today end up on Good, Bad, or Ugly on Friday? Stay tuned. Stay tuned. There's only one way to find out, but I wish you luck.
The funny would be if it doesn't show up on Good, Bad, or Ugly because I'm in the hospital.
Well, that's a different category that we will hopefully avoid. Thank you, Jake Mintz. Thank you, producer Andrew Hartz. Thank you to our guest, Jake Eisenberg, for joining us. And we will talk to you all on Friday. You can email us at baseballbarbacast@gmail.com. Thank you all for listening. We'll talk to you later this week.